Hello and welcome into Double A Baseball. Adam Oppenheim with, of course, Alex Hynes here on Wednesday, August 6th. Super exciting show we have for you guys today, including recapping the trade deadline, which is mostly just going to be the whole show. And Alex, everyone looked at this trade deadline, and we said in our last show that it might not be super exciting. And although a lot of the controllable starters didn't move, everyone else seemed to move who was rumored to have been moved from the original team.
Yeah, it was really weird because I think initially we saw this as like a very weak potential deadline. There weren't really the same kind of big names that were expiring deals, at least. You're not having that deadline where, Max Scherzer's getting dealt, where Trey Turner's getting dealt like we had several years ago. But at the same time, you look at it and then you realize how many controllable guys are getting moved. We got such a weird deadline where you're seeing bigger names moved when they really realistically normally are not getting traded with what they had remaining on their contracts. So it's really confusing at times what to expect. You had so many names that you were like assured were going to get traded, but even then, there were several guys that you're like, why are they getting moved today and not, a year from now or in the off season? It was confounding at times, trying to follow where everything was going.
Well, we're going to go off the MLB site and what they think are the biggest moves and just go down um, the biggest moves first. And I think undoubtedly we have to start with the Padres acquiring Mason Miller and JP Sears as well. It's a huge part of this trade. And the big part going back to the Athletics is Leo DeVries, the number three overall prospect, who's I think 19 years old, along with the number three prospect for the Padres as well, and a couple others. A massive trade, and really the Padres gutted their farm system.
AJ Preller does not care.
He doesn't.
He has made it very clear that he will trade any prospect for current major league talent. And it was a surprising deal because again, we talked all about, oh man, is Mason Miller going to get moved last year? And kind of like a joking way because it was like he just got brought up. He was bursting on the scene. The A's have now a lot of those young players. They've got Kurtz, Butler. They've got guys that they can actually start to say, this is our core of our next good athletics team. And then you trade Mason Miller, which, I mean, again, I understand he's controllable. His value is as high as it's ever going to be. You're not going to get a top 10 prospect in baseball at the trade deadline nearly ever. And they
Nope.
got him for Miller and JP Sears, who's basically a throw-in guy. I mean, he was a tradable asset from their pitching staff. But he was a guy who was definitely going to probably go. So it's weird to me because like Miller is not really the biggest need of the Padres, I wouldn't say. I mean, you got Robert Suarez, they had the best bullpen in baseball. Mason Miller is not a real need, but I mean, hey, you got Mason Miller, Robert Suarez for the near future. Yeah, that'll do, especially when you get to the playoffs.
Yeah, not to mention they've also Jason Adam, who's been terrific out of the bullpen. Jeremiah Estrada has been very good. They have a bunch of good relievers. The question is it worth giving up a prospect that's already ranked so high and so talented for a relief pitcher who, yes, he throws hard, but unless you're stretching him into a starter role, I think it's kind of a short outlook. You're looking at this trade. Like you want to win within the next two or
Right.
3 years.
Yeah, and that's where I don't really agree with it for the Padres is I can see it both ways. On the one hand, if you're the Padres, he's 19, so there's a lot that's still has to be developed. He's the number three prospect, but he's not going to be seen in the bigs for a few years. You're not trading, a guy that's going to be, killing it for the A's, in September or next September. But again, I think for a reliever is crazy to me because again, Mason Miller's got this, he's got crazy upside as a closer, but again, you already have bullpen depth, and I just don't think that an extra elite reliever when you already have an elite bullpen moves the needle the same way as if they then traded for a controllable starter. Now, if you traded him for, you know, just spitballing, hey, Mackenzie Gore, come on back, or or Joe Ryan or whatever. I'm not saying that would have been perfectly fair, but if you traded it for a starter, which I think they would need a lot more than they need a reliever right now, it would make a lot more sense. But again, the youth of DeVries, the number three overall prospect, I think makes things a bit more palatable for the Padres, knowing that, there's still a lot that can go right, a lot that could go wrong.
Right. I mean, you haven't even seen him near the major league level, not double A or triple A. Uh, but that was a kind of expected move because of the night before the deadline. There was a lot of reporting that was saying the Padres were in the market for Mason Miller, and of course, AJ Preller is willing to give up prospects. So you're thinking that that's the only way it's going to happen. I mean, the Athletics at this point aren't going to take a major league player off of the Padres team, especially anyone who's even near aging, considering how young their team is right now. And the best players on their team are mostly young players as well. So they gave one away in Miller, and then they get back a giant prospect haul. So let's go on to another big trade, and it's Carlos Correa going back to the Astros. His time in Minnesota was not good. The fans did not like him, but it feels right to have him go back to the Astros after Isaac Paredes is going to be out for the year with an injury, and Jeremy Payne's going to stick it short. Correa will be at third.
Yeah, I mean the fact that he was able to move over to third and was willing to do that, I think was the big thing for the Astros. And again, I mean, again, the injury history has not been great. He hasn't been playing the same way he was with the Astros. But I mean, Houston is managed to be very good this year, despite a lot of things not really going the way they probably would want it to. And again, they don't really have that same kind of core as they had when Correa was there the first time round. So to add him back, I think it's a perfect fit, and it's a guy that is going to fit the team. So it made a lot of sense giving up a guy that again is not really a high level prospect. It was kind of more just the Astros picking up a guy that the Twins just wanted to dump the salary on.
Yeah, he's a leader off the field and on the field as well. He's pretty much like a second captain of the infield, considering how many years he's played shortstop in the MLB. And then his swing is just perfect at Minute Maid with the Crawford boxes and
Oh
left.
yeah.
He's pretty much a dead pull hitter. I guess unless he hits a walk-off home run in the playoffs, and sometimes he hits it's the opposite field. But he's a great playoff performer, and this is a player I'm sure the Astros were extremely happy to get back. Really didn't give up a ton, just paying um, a good portion of Carlos Correa's contract. Uh, but the Astros, I mean, they're going to be really dangerous. Two great starting pitchers, and then adding Correa.
Oh yeah.
So let's move on to the Mariners getting back at Eugenio Suarez. Tyler Locklear is one of the main prospects going back to the Diamondbacks. Once again, another reunion.
Yeah, and this for me was possibly the underpay of the deadline. I mean, this was I think the biggest steal. And for the Mariners who already got Josh Naylor, they got that one power bat they needed. They get Suarez back, who again was a fan favorite there. Um, I think Torey Lovello was saying that, he was talking to Suarez about the trade before he left Arizona, and apparently his phone background was already back to him being in Seattle. So you can kind of tell the love story there between him and the Mariners. And again, he fits what they need. They needed power. They need somebody who can cut through that, that air in the Pacific Northwest and that very big pitcher's ballpark. Um, at T-Mobile. And I mean, it's a perfect fit. I mean, it's what they needed. It's a guy that, again, I really think they should have held on to in the first place, but they don't really give up much, is the
No,
thing. I mean, that's a deal that I think, the D-backs spread out some of the risk with getting, three very middle of the road prospects. But I mean, for Seattle, this is the haul you're looking for.
the thing about the Mariners is their farm system is pretty well stocked. So although they're not giving up high prospects, they could be rated higher by other teams, and that's sometimes what people don't understand about the trade deadline. Just because someone's ranked, for example, number 90th on MLB, a team might look at it and say, I think he's a top 50 prospect in baseball. And that could totally be what happened to Arizona here. Or on the other side, they're just looking to get rid of all the players they can, and a team that's not going to be competing in the wild card. At least you would think at this point in the NL.
Right.
So let's go down the list. Phillies acquiring Johan Duran from the Twins. Give up Mick Abel, who is ranked highly in the Philadelphia system, but the Phillies adding a bullpen piece I talked about last week. The first thing I said is the Phillies need to add to their bullpen, and they do because Duran is absolutely disgusting.
And you consider that also they're getting Jose Alvarado back from that PED suspension. So now you
Although
got two guys.
yeah, he
Hmm?
can't pitch in the playoffs though.
Right. But in the
But
regular
yeah.
season, down the stretch, you're talking about two guys that from opposite sides can throw, 100
Mhm.
plus. But Duran, I mean, again, he's the perfect pick. I mean, it was him and Ryan Helsley were the top two relievers that I think we were expecting to go before the Mason Miller bomb dropped. And so it felt like they were the team that both had the means and the need to get a top level reliever. And again, Duran makes a lot of sense. They kept his walkout for his first appearance. And I think, Mick Abel and Eduardo Taiu are both really interesting prospects. I mean, both top five in the system.
Mhm.
Obviously, Abel has been pretty well regarded. So I think honestly, the Twins will be happy with what they got back for Duran, knowing that this was going to be a fire sale where they were going to get a lot of prospects back. They just need to hope that they can hit on enough of them to build a core that can actually compete for more than a couple seasons, like the last few years.
Yeah, well, let's keep on talking about relief pitchers. You mentioned it, Ryan Helsley, acquired by the Mets. That was a move that the Mets wanted to add another arm to their bullpen. Now the Mets have really been scuffling as of late. Just they haven't been playing well, but Helsley's a good ad.
Yeah, and actually, it's not just Helsley. They add in Tyler Rogers from the Giants as
That's right.
well. So they
Yeah.
bring in two really good relievers. Helsley can be a perfect tandem with Edwin Diaz. Again, it's a very similar situation to talking with the Padres, where you've got Miller then Suarez, in addition to their other arms. Now you've got Helsley and Diaz. It's not just that you can throw them back to back in a big playoff series, but during the regular season, then you don't need to stress Diaz, on days where maybe you're unlikely to throw him even in a close game just because of the workload he's on. Hey, Ryan Helsley's right there for you. I mean, he's been the best reliever in baseball the last 2 years. Hasn't had quite the same year as last year in terms of how dominant he's been, but again, you're talking about another guy who throws hard. I think perfectly fits what the Mets need. And now just look at that tandem. You see Duran and Helsley both in the NL East. I mean, woo, that is going to be some fun matchups if they're close games down the stretch. You could see a bunch of hard throwers out of the pen.
Yeah, there was a lot of bullpen arms added, and it's fun to see the electric arms and the fun entrances on playoff teams. It is really disappointing when you see a great relief pitcher and a losing team just hold on to him for no reason, especially if they're going to be a free agent. Like, well, what's the point?
Oh,
You're not going to re-sign him.
and that's why I'm surprised that Helsley wasn't moved in the offseason. I mean, he's a guy that, again, the Cardinals didn't really do anything to indicate they were going to compete this year. They've been actually around right at 500. So, I mean, it's not like they've been terrible. But again, I think that's more of overperformance than the preseason expectations. So they probably could have gotten a bit more for him, but again, if you're the Mets, you're not going to complain.
Absolutely not. Well, another New York team also added relievers. Let's talk about the Yankees. David Bednar and Camilo Doval, their two biggest ads out of the bullpen to go along with Devin Williams. Now, it hasn't worked out well so far, but I mean, the Yankees want to add more in their bullpen, and they did just that at the deadline.
It was quite a weird uh, set of moves for the Yankees because they
Yeah,
went for former really well proven relievers. Now, David Bednar's been a lot
David
better
Varner's
since
been,
that that
yeah,
that torrid start. But, at the same time, it's not like you're getting guys that have been like that are at the top of the market. So it's kind of interesting to see them, trade for Duvall, who got sent down last year, Bednar, who got sent down earlier this year and has been great since he's come back. Obviously, again, as you said, it really hasn't worked so far in what, two games. But, it's a weird one for me because I think the Yankees could have been a team that really could have just went all in on a bigger
older
closer because
round,
Devin
but
Williams
yeah.
hasn't worked. And so you're really bringing in a bunch of, again, I don't want to be too unfair to guys like Bednar and Duvall, but I mean, it's kind of, a bullpen of misfit toys right now because you've got guys that, again, can be really good, but right now you're a bit more iffy on them, uh, maybe than you would have been a year ago.
Man, I think the thing about Doval is he walks too many batters, and as a closer, that's going to be really tough. And then you're playing in Yankee Stadium, and as a righty pitcher, you're going to get pinch hitting lefties, and right field at Yankee Stadium, it's pretty short, so that could get dangerous really in a hurry. And that's where I don't understand the fit, especially Doval, who, if he has his slider working, is working into lefties. You do not want that at Yankee Stadium because that's going to be pulled out.
Yeah. And again, I mean, even Bednar, it was not the walks, it was that he got hit hard when he was struggling.
Yeah.
And so now again, he's got a sub two ERA, more recently, but again, there's still that concern because he wasn't really lights out last year either. It was the year before that he was really, really on the mark.
All right, where do you want to go next? Actually, let's go to a rental pitcher, Merrill Kelly to the Rangers. But what do you think about that?
I mean, I think they were a team that needed it. I think again the Rangers were an interesting team because they have all these older guys around Nate Eovaldi, and it's like, man, you could use a little bit more consistency. And Merrill Kelly has been Mr. Consistent,
Oh
really.
yeah.
I mean, he's been as good as you can get without being a star, really. And you could argue the performance is warranting of being a star. And again, the playoff track record with that Diamondbacks team makes a lot of sense for a team that wants to compete and try and, channel what they had 2 years ago when they won the World Series and say, all right, we know what we need now to win. We saw them in the playoffs when we beat the Diamondbacks, so it's kind of the perfect scouting report on a pitcher to bring in at the deadline.
Yeah, Merrill Kelly in that postseason, 3-1, 2.25 ERA, gave up 6 total runs,
Yeah,
4 were home runs.
and he's been good this year again. I mean, he's been outperforming Zach Gallen, who's the ace of staff there this year. So, again, Merrill Kelly has been a guy that I think people kind of don't really give enough attention to.
And I think that's the third guy the Rangers would throw in the postseason. I think you have Nate Eovaldi, who's had maybe the most underrated season in the
Oh
MLB. He
yeah.
has like a 1.3 ERA, and no one's even talking about him in the AL Cy Young race. I know his innings are a little bit down, but like, what happens if he
I
gets like to
mean,
170 and has a less than a 1.5 ERA? He has to win, right?
yeah, I mean, it's crazy to me that's not more obvious. I was shocked when I saw that stat just brought up so casually. Given that we were talking about like Max Fried that same way. Max Fried is going to be the Cy Young favorite when he had like a sub two ERA through May, early June, I think. And obviously, he's probably out of the running now. So it's like, well,
Yeah.
Evaldi, come on. He deserves it. He's been so good for so many years now, especially in Texas.
Yeah, and then those two along with DeGrom. I mean, DeGrom hasn't been
That'll play.
great, but I mean, if he's healthy, I mean, I trust him in a postseason game.
Oh
And
yeah.
I mean, there's other players who I trust less, and therefore I'm going to trust DeGrom more in the
Fair enough.
postseason. Other moves,
You know
Padres
what?
acquiring Ryan O'Hearn.
Yeah. I mean, they had some bats there,
Yeah.
which makes sense.
What were you going to say?
I wanted to talk about the Reds deadline, actually. I want to talk
Yeah.
about Zach Littell, first off, who actually pitched extremely well against the Cubs yesterday. But I mean, that was a three-team deal, kind of worked out really well in their favor to get a guy who, again, had like the second lowest walk rate in all of baseball. I mean, he's a guy that doesn't give up free bases when you're talking about pitching in Cincy, and as a guy who already gives up a lot of homers, at the very least, you're mitigating that risk by saying, all right, well, I probably will give up some homers, but they're not going to be three-run bombs. They're not going to be grand slams. Hopefully, not too many two-run shots. You know, trust the offense to make do there. And so I like that one, but I think even more so, I mean, Brian Hayes, if you can figure out the bat in the small park that is Great American, you already have an elite defender. They gave up next to nothing. I mean, they gave up Taylor Rogers and a prospect, and Taylor Rogers is now on the Cubs. I mean, like, they gave up very little. And So between those two, I think they did a great job. And Lance Brosnowski of Marquee did a great had a great like sort of spreadsheet matrix to gauge overpay, underpay. It's not, a be all end all. He made that clear, but that was one of the underpays of the deadline, along with Eugenio Suarez. I mean, you give up one prospect that's not really very highly regarded, and you get Brian Hayes for like 5 years. I mean,
He's under team
elite
control.
defense.
That's the
Yeah,
big thing.
a lot of it. As
Um,
much as anybody at the deadline. That's what shocked me.
yeah, and his bat could be good. I mean, it's been struggling this season, uh, but
But even
still,
if the bat becomes average,
yeah, you're in
you're
a
in
good
great
spot
shape.
if you're Gold Glover over
It just
there.
can't be
Or
bad,
Hayes.
which is what it is right now. It's atrocious. The bat's
Well,
atrocious.
I think that's part of the reason the Pirates traded him away. I mean, if well, I mean, it could be because the Pirates organization just isn't very good, but
Yeah.
um, you give him away because you don't see the potential. But then once again, you're getting like nothing for him. I'm looking at this for Pittsburgh. I mean, like I just don't get it, honestly.
Is this just waving the white flag at your ability to develop hitters? So again, Hayes has
I
some
guess.
glaring problems, but at the same time, I mean, he's an elite defender at third base. If you can get the bat decent, like I mean, his rookie year, I think he was closer to average. Then you're talking about a good ball player. I mean, he's not going to be your superstar, but again, solid defense at third base will do the job. And so to give him up for next to nothing when he has the control that should warrant a bit higher of a price, that's the part that shocks me to a division rival. Especially a team that really looks like they're in decent shape to fix him, at least to, you know, improve the offense, but just purely based on the place they play. But I don't know.
Yeah,
Pirate's gonna pirate.
uh, I'm interested to see what you think about this move. And it was Shane Bieber going to the Blue Jays. Now
Yes.
he's been injured, but what do you think about the move?
I don't like it for the Jays at all. I think it
Really?
works really. I like it for Cleveland actually. Um, because again, going back to something that I heard Lance Brzezowski talk about, and he's a prospect guru. I mean, he talked about how much people really like Cal Steven, the righty out of Mississippi State and Purdue. I actually got a chance to watch Cal a few years when he was in college, a few years ago. And he's a guy that apparently like people seem to like the up in the prospect system for that Jays team. I think he's a guy that is a steep price to pay for Bieber, who may not be, may not be where they need him to be. And again, he's got an opt out too, I believe, to where if he performs well, he helps your team, then he opts out. If he performs poorly, then you're stuck with him for a year and a half, having given up a decent pitching prospect. So that's where I'd be a bit worried if I were the Jays.
See, I was gonna say I think this is a decent move for the Jays. I mean, you are buying pretty high from Cleveland for a guy coming off Tommy John surgery, who was out a lot of last year, almost all last year, and a giant portion of this year. But I think his stuff works in the MLB. He doesn't throw hard, but he's sort of the veteran player now. Doesn't walk a lot of batters throughout his career. Doesn't always have the highest strikeout percentage. But I think he's someone you can rely on in the postseason. And with the Blue Jays having the season they are now, which let's be real, I mean, the Blue Jays really haven't been in contention in quite a bit to actually make it to like the ALCS. Maybe they've been in contention for the wild card, but you're looking at the batters and they're pretty good. And then the starting pitching, I don't know how many of these guys you're going to trust. Jose Barrios, Kevin Gausman, Max Scherzer, Chris Bassett. Like, I think you trust Shane Bieber maybe
But
the
he hasn't pitched
maybe
in a
out of
year and a half.
right. He hasn't. I mean, but that's
I mean,
but that's part of it.
I don't think he's looked like Shane Bieber for 2 years then,
Yeah, but
He was,
I don't think if you're the Blue Jays and you're ahead of the Yankees and Red Sox, big high market teams who maybe the Red Sox haven't been able to win the past few years, but the Yankees always have a good season. You're on top of that division. You don't want to just flop in the first round of the
oh,
playoffs.
no, I mean,
Like that
I
that would
think,
be disastrous. So I think
right.
that's part of why you make this move.
Well, I think getting a pitcher makes sense. I'm just not sure that Bieber's the right pitcher
So,
for
so you
that
would have
team.
preferred someone else.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have traded for a pitcher. I just think Bieber, for the price they paid, is a bit too big of a risk when I think if you got somebody a bit more sound, maybe not a top end arm, but you got a guy that gives you a bit more depth, then you can feel a bit more confident. Again, that division, you're leading it, but also you're not guaranteed to hold on to that lead. So I think you'd want someone that, while Bieber's proven at the big league level, he also is unproven in recent years because of injury. And I think that's a bit of a high risk to take when you're in such a, big position like they're in.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think a lot of the controllable starters that they were going to go after, though, were going to be worth even more.
Oh
Um,
yeah, well, and that's where again, I don't think that anybody was really going to shop at the top of the market this year.
yeah, I
There's just
mean,
no way.
right. So I'll have one more move that we can discuss, and then we can go to our winners and losers. Hit on those really quick. Red Sox acquiring Dustin May, give up James Tibbs III, who they got in the Devers deal. The Red Sox needed a starting pitcher, and they ended up with Dustin May.
I mean, I think Dustin May is a good back end of the rotation guy with good potential. They can, figure it out. He's a guy that's been hurt so much that it's hard to really know what you have anymore, you know? So it's the question of, is the current like 4.5 plus ERA that he has right now emblematic of who he's going to be? Or, again, he's 27. It's not like he's, extremely old, but he's not extremely young either. So, I think it's a good high upside, average floor kind of deal. And so we'll see. But at least in terms of lengthening that rotation, it makes sense.
Yeah, he's definitely a better option than Walker Bueller. So we'll see how he pitches with the Red Sox. Let's go on to our two winners and two losers. Alex, just quickly toss out your two winners if you have them.
Two winners. I'm going to start with the Mets again because the pitching we added, plus talking about Cedric Mullins, a guy who they added a bat who not playing great this year. Again, I think that just helps them in general. And I'm going to go the Phillies as well. I'm going to say the NL East. I think the two teams that you really wanted to make the big moves, they bring in Duran. They also bring in Harrison Bader. I think that adds a little bit more than they got out of say like a Brandon Marsh. So I think both of them made good moves on both sides, even if the splashier ones run in the bullpen.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the Phillies too. Took one of mine. Adding to the bullpen, huge because the bullpen was an absolute disaster. They would have a lead late in games and they'd blow it. My other one, it's gonna be the Athletics. I mean, you got Leo DeVries, which was probably the most coveted prospect in baseball right now for a relief pitcher, and that's how I'm going to look at it. So that's why I'm going to say the Athletics at this point. I mean, they're not competing for a ton of wins. So what's the need of a ninth inning reliever? Yeah, I kind of like the move. Maybe I'm be going crazy looking back at this take, but I like the Athletics.
I think that's sound. I think that's sound with the prospect pull. And
Uh,
that's fair.
all right, let's go to our two losers. I have a feeling we might have at least one of the same.
Yeah, why don't you go first?
I'm gonna go with the Cubs is my first one. Just didn't do enough at the deadline to move the needle, and obviously the team has been really struggling hitting the ball, but they didn't add to their starting pitching staff. I know there wasn't a lot out there, but at the same time, if you want to compete, you have to pay the price. Honestly, they were in the market for Suarez, but I think they're fine with Matt Shaw over there at third base. And then my second one is gonna be the Red Sox. And at the deadline last week, if we were to record it right after the deadline, everyone would say the Red Sox are losers. And now that they're on a winning streak, people might be like, oh, they didn't do much, but still, they're winning baseball games. I'm looking at strictly the trade deadline. They didn't do enough. Once again, in the market for a starting pitcher, I don't think they did well enough. This will happen more in the playoffs. It could be a bigger factor.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with the Cubs. Again,
Yeah.
I don't think they should have gone for the Mackenzie Gores of the world. I just don't think
No,
the price made any sense. I do think that Michael Soroka was a whiff. And
easy.
maybe an Adrian Hauser is a better option, or
Oh, I
maybe
totally agree with that.
or
Yeah.
maybe they find a way to take a risk on Shane Bieber. Again, I wouldn't love the Shane Bieber move, but at the same time, it's a guy that kind of fits that area. Um, and so I just think that they should have done a bit more. Shoring up the bullpen's great. I mean, Andrew Kittredge, Tyler Rogers are both, or Taylor Rogers, both solid adds to the bullpen. I don't think that was the biggest issue. But again, I just, I just think they needed to do something, given that they don't have Justin Steele. And while they've gotten really good outings from guys like Kate Horton now, I think there is a bit more that they should have done, especially now that the optics don't look very great with their post deadline success. The other one I'm gonna go with, and I think it's just because I would have liked to see them uh do a little bit more. I'm surprised that you know we didn't see a lot out of the Brewers. I'm not saying they lost either. I think they've been playing great baseball. But again, I think it's shown that they've been a bit on the fortunate end in some ways. They're putting on an insane run. So maybe it would have been nice for them to try and make a splash. Again, they're a team that has developed so many young guys. Maybe one of them that's, log jammed in the minors could be a guy they look to try and move. So I'm a bit surprised given that this NL Central is wide open. The Cubs weren't making splashes, so I'm surprised that the Brewers didn't try to do so.
Yeah, those are interesting teams. All right, you got any other teams to add, winners or losers? There's a lot of teams that are in
Just
between, and half
a
the teams
small.
aren't good. So
It's not a loser necessarily, but I just want to say a loser being the Twins, just in the sense that they kind of lost all
loser the
like
fans.
credibility to their fan base. So I think again they probably got some good pieces back if they could develop them, but I think they did way bigger of a fire sale than they needed to. Again, they got rid of both Duran and Jackson. You figure one of those guys, cost controlled closer type guy, would stay if the other went. They traded both. They kind of made it very clear for an organization that already has had strained relationship between front office or especially their owner and the fans that optics wise looked awful. And so, you know,
Yeah.
I'll put them as a loser, even if the return's probably not the worst.
Yeah, you got to put him in loser at this point. All right, let's go on to our segments. Oh no, and AA plus from the last week. Alex, you want to go first with AA plus?
Yeah, let's get you a little bit of our AA plus. Let's start with the A's again. They seem to be making a heavy occurrence here. Let's talk about Jay Langoliers, the catcher hitting a three-homer game, and he becomes just the fourth catcher to have that happen twice in his career. He hit one, I think, 2 years ago, and he joins catchers Johnny Bench, Gary Carter, and Travis d'Arnaud as the other guys to have managed to do it. And he's been a power hitting catcher for the A's. He's a bright spot on that team. Number two, well, let's go to Sunday Night Baseball, where Riley Green made a pair of phenomenal diving catches against the Phillies, including one in the second inning where he nearly gets clattered into by a center fielder. But again, flashing the leather out in left field for that very good Tigers team. They continue to be the best team in baseball. And then Andrew Kittredge, just today, as we were recording this, an immaculate inning, as rare as you can get, fires it against the Reds. All three strikeouts coming on down and away sliders. The last one outside the zone. Batter can't hold up. And I mean, it's the first one for the Cubs since 2022, and they had a much different roster back then. And I can't remember how many immaculate innings there are total, but not very many. So, Andrew Kittredge, welcome to that elite club.
And we were talking about it before the show. If Kevin Williams had that no hitter, that would have been pretty cool. But
Well,
Juan Soto decided to ruin that. It was 700 million to
should have walked him.
not get no. Yeah, walking a guy with the face empty.
Is
I,
is that is that the pitching equivalent of bunting during a no-hitter? Is walking a guy and saying, well, I don't have a perfect game. It doesn't matter.
that would be very funny. But yeah, his pitch count was getting up there. But hey, that was a good effort. But
Put up the four
yeah,
fingers.
yeah. Hey, three fun ones in A plus. That's for sure. Let's go to oh no. My top three worst plays of the week. Starting off at number three, the not so super bullpen. One day after the trade deadline, the Yankees add four players and play the Marlins in Miami. They're up late in the game. It's 9-4 going into the bottom of the seventh. They have Jake Bird who comes over from the Rockies. He gives up 4 runs. Then they bring in David Bednar, who they acquired from Pittsburgh. He gives up a game tying home run. 2 runs. Yankees come back to take the lead. And then the ninth, Camilo Doval, they got from San Francisco, gives up the game winning run on a walk-off single. And that's not even including Jose Caballero, who they got from the Rays, and right field, who lets a single go right past his glove roll all the way to the fence, and that sets up the walk-off for the Marlins. Absolutely brutal for the Yankees. The second one, Fox Sports, the social media blunder. There was a report about Joe Ryan possibly going to the Red Sox by John Morosi. He had a tweet that, the Red Sox are in talks with him. Now, whoever was working the Fox Sports MLB Twitter thought it was confirmed and said, breaking, Joe Ryan has been traded to the Red Sox per John Morosi. That tweet was deleted 5 minutes later. And Joe Ryan, he stays in Minnesota. And at number one, the Pirates disaster class. They were up 9-0 against the Colorado Rockies in Colorado, and then up by multiple runs in the ninth inning. They blow both those leads and lose on a walk-off home run. Disastrous. The only team that could be worse than being a Rockies fan is possibly being a Pirates fan. And those are my top three worst plays of the week.
Gosh, that Pirates Rockies game. I mean, you could put that in the good for the Rockies. You could put that in the bad for the Pirates. I think it's better suited to the bad when you look at the win probability there. Oh no, and yeah, God, only
Yeah,
at Coors Field can you get something as crazy and wild as that.
9-0 on the top of the first. Like, I'm sure most fans are just turning off their TVs if they're Rockies fans. They've seen this story before, but the story didn't end like a lot of the other ones because they're playing Pittsburgh.
Somebody had to win.
Right. And that night, it ended up being the Colorado Rockies. Well, that's going to wrap it up here on Double A Baseball, heading down the stretch of the regular season. For my partner, Alex Hynes, I'm Adam Oppenheim. We'll see you next time on Double A Baseball.